You earn more than you used to, maybe noticeably more. Enough that the version of you from 5 years ago, the one doing actual survival math at 2 a.m., would feel genuine relief looking at your current numbers. And yet, the feeling is the same. Not identical to what it was back then, but the same species of anxiety. The slight tightness when you check your account. The low hum of financial unease that doesn't quite match the balance anymore. The way a big, unexpected expense still hits harder than the number on paper says it should. You thought earning more would fix it. You believed that on some level, not naively, not without nuance, but somewhere underneath all the sensible things you know about money, you believed that getting past a certain number would change how this feels. And you got past the number, maybe you got past several numbers, and the feeling moved with you. Now there's a new confusion layered on top of the old one. Because now you feel anxious about money, and you feel like you're not supposed to. You know people with less who seem calmer about it. You know your situation is objectively better than it was, and you can't explain to anyone, can't really explain to yourself, why this still sits in your chest the way it does. So you do the only logical thing, you tell yourself the next level will fix it. More savings, more income, a bigger buffer, a clearer picture. And you keep working toward that, which is fine. But somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet, uncomfortable question has started to form. What if it doesn't? What if the number was never the problem? That question's uncomfortable to sit with. Because if the number isn't the problem, then working toward a bigger number isn't the solution. And if that's not the solution, then the way you've been organizing your entire relationship with security, with financial safety, might need to change in a way that has nothing to do with your income. Here's the specific version of this that nobody talks about out loud. It's not the stress of not having enough. People understand that one. It has a name. There's sympathy for it. This is the stranger, lonelier version. Feeling financially anxious when the numbers say you shouldn't be. When you have more than you used to, more than many people around you, more than any younger version of you would have believed. And the feeling is still there. The shame of this is particular. You can't really complain about it. You can't bring it up without sounding ungrateful or confused or like you need someone to remind you that you're doing fine. So it stays quiet. It sits in your chest in the small hours of the morning and doesn't make conversation. And the worst part is that it makes you doubt your own perception. Maybe you're just bad at managing money, and this is evidence of that. Maybe you need more discipline. Maybe something is genuinely wrong with how you think about this, and you haven't found the fix yet. All of those feel more comfortable than the actual explanation, because the actual explanation is stranger and simpler than any of them. Here's what's actually happening. Your feelings about money were never about the money. They were set a long time ago. Not by your current income or your current expenses or your current financial situation. They were set by what your nervous system learned about money before you were old enough to question it. What money felt like in the house you grew up in. What it meant when there wasn't enough. What the emotional temperature of financial conversations was. What got said and what got carefully avoided. That early learning created something psychologists call a financial set point, an internal emotional baseline that your nervous system treats as normal. And the thing about set points is that they don't move when your income moves. More money doesn't reset the set point. It just gives you a higher number to feel the same way about. Your brain adapts to almost everything. This is one of its most impressive and most quietly frustrating features. A salary that once felt life-changing becomes, within a year, just your salary. A home that felt like a real achievement becomes just where you live. A level of income that would have made your younger self feel genuinely secure becomes the floor. Your current self is anxious about falling through. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the brain's tendency to normalize its current reality, whatever that reality happens to be. But financial set points work slightly differently from general hedonic adaptation. They're not just about getting used to what you have. They're about what your nervous system learned to expect and to fear at a much earlier age. Think about it this way. Your nervous system formed its core beliefs about money during childhood and early adolescence. Not through lessons or lectures, but through observation and feeling. Did money arrive reliably or unpredictably? Was there a sense of ease around it or a low hum of constant worry? Were financial problems discussed openly, or did they create a particular silence at the dinner table? Did you watch the adults in your life feel in control of money or quietly at its mercy? Whatever the answers were, your nervous system took notes. And it built a model of what money feels like, how much is enough to feel safe, how quickly things can disappear, whether financial security is something you can actually trust, or just something that exists in the gap between emergencies. That model is your financial set point. And here's the part that makes everything click into place. Your brain's job is not to make you feel good about what you have. Its job is to keep you consistent with what it learned to expect. So when your income rises above your set point, your nervous system doesn't just celebrate and move on. It experiences a kind of low-grade unfamiliarity, an almost unconscious sense that this level isn't quite real, isn't quite stable, isn't quite yours yet. And it quietly starts looking for ways to return to familiar ground. This is why some people consistently earn more and spend more, keeping the net balance roughly where the set point expects it to be. It's why an unexpected windfall can produce anxiety instead of relief. It's why someone can have an objectively secure financial situation and still carry the specific tension of someone waiting for the other shoe to drop. The set point isn't responding to your current bank balance. It's responding to what it learned a long time ago was normal. And until the model updates, the number in the account does not change what the account feels like. It's also, and this is the quiet part nobody really says, why some people feel financially anxious about amounts that would make others feel wealthy. And why some people feel genuinely calm about amounts that others would find stressful. Two people can have the exact same number in their account and have completely different emotional experiences of it. Not because one of them is irrational, but because they learned different things about what that number means. Same mechanism, 4 different people. The person who grew up in a household where money was always slightly too tight. Not catastrophically, just consistently. The kind of tight where you learned not to ask for things, where you registered the stress in adult faces before you even knew what the word mortgage meant. They work hard, they build their income, and by any reasonable measure, they're doing well now. But they can't shake the feeling of financial precariousness that doesn't match their actual situation. They save aggressively, which isn't bad, but from a place of fear rather than intention. They check their accounts more than they need to. They feel a specific guilt about spending on anything that isn't essential. They've earned their way out of the financial situation they grew up in. The nervous system that grew up in it came with them. The person who grew up watching money create conflict, arguments that started about bills and became about everything else. The emotional weather of the household shifting whenever a financial problem appeared. They absorbed a belief without anyone stating it. Money is a source of tension, of trouble, of things going wrong. So now, even when their finances are genuinely fine, money carries that emotional weight. Managing it feels like bracing for a fight. Looking at their accounts feels like checking for damage. They've spent years trying to get better with money. What they're actually navigating is an old emotional association that runs underneath all the practical stuff. The person who grew up with real financial comfort and then lost it, a family business that failed, a parent who lost their job, a period that shifted everything. They learned something very specific. Financial security is temporary. No matter how solid things look, it can change. So now they carry a form of financial anxiety that isn't about current scarcity, but about anticipated loss. The security they have feels like it's on loan. The stability looks real but doesn't feel real. And no amount of accumulation quite closes that gap, because the set point learned that security is something that eventually disappears. The person who watched money used as control, given or withheld to create dependency, to reward compliance, to punish independence. They may have promised themselves they'd never let money have that kind of power over them. And they've built real independence. But they still feel an emotional charge around financial decisions that doesn't match the situation. Spending can feel like transgression. Receiving can feel like obligation. Having enough can feel complicated in ways that are genuinely hard to explain to anyone who didn't grow up inside that specific dynamic. 4 people. 4 completely different financial histories. 4 completely different ways the set point got set. All of them now in financial situations that should feel different than they do. All of them doing the responsible things. Saving, building, planning, and still carrying an emotional relationship with money that their current numbers don't explain. Because the current numbers were never what set the relationship in the first place. 3 steps. These won't restructure your finances. They'll do something more useful. They'll start to update the model. Step 1. identify your set point by feelings, not by income. Not what's in your account, but what amount there makes you feel genuinely calm versus what amount triggers the familiar anxiety regardless of what the situation actually calls for. Pay attention to where the feeling kicks in and where it eases. That threshold is the set point. Naming it precisely, I start to feel anxious when my savings drop below this number, even when my actual expenses don't justify that reaction, is the beginning of separating the feeling from the fact. Step 2. Trace where the set point came from. Not as therapy, just as information. What was the emotional temperature of money in the house you grew up in? What did you learn? Not from conversations, but from just being there and watching. About whether financial security was reliable or fragile, whether having money was normal or temporary, whether financial worry was just part of the background noise of adult life. You're not trying to blame anyone. You're trying to locate the origin of the model so you can see it as a model rather than as the truth about how money works. Step 3. Practice separating the feeling from the current data. When the financial anxiety shows up, pause and ask one honest question. Does this feeling match what's actually happening right now? Or does it match what used to happen? Most of the time, it's the second one. The feeling is real. The threat it's responding to isn't current. It's an echo of something that happened long before your current situation existed. You don't have to make the echo stop. You just have to stop mistaking it for something that's happening right now. Getting more money won't fix how you feel about money. Not completely. Not permanently. The feeling isn't a financial problem. It's a nervous system problem. And nervous systems don't update through bank statements. They update slowly through repeated evidence that contradicts what they were taught to expect. Through financial situations that stay stable long enough for the body to start actually believing they will. Through decisions made from intention rather than fear. Through quietly realizing that the emergency your nervous system has been bracing for hasn't arrived. You didn't choose the set point. It was handed to you before you had any say in the matter, shaped by people and circumstances and moments that had nothing to do with your competence or your worth. But you can update it, not by earning more. By teaching your nervous system, one calm financial moment at a time, that things are genuinely different now. That takes longer than a raise, but it's the only thing that actually works. Not because the money does not matter. It does practically every day. But because the way you feel about it was never really about the amount. It was about what the amount meant, and meaning is something only you can change.